All right. Good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I am so glad to be bringing you Crime Crunchies. Again, thanks so much for joining me tonight. We are going to be diving into my part 10, my theory of the family knows who took Nancy, but there is late breaking news, like literally in the last hour, and it has to do with a tip about an unmarked grave near Nogales. I'm not sure if that's on the Mexican side or the Arizona side. So I'm going to go directly into a few articles right now, and then we'll get into my theory because not sure that really anything has come of this, but I don't know. It's hard to say. So according to, there's a tip came in from a group called Buscando Corazones Nogales. And apparently they are an organized search group that look for missing persons. And they had received an anonymous tip yesterday, Wednesday, June 10th, of somebody calling in and identifying a location where Nancy Guthrie is buried. And this group went out and dug, and I'm not sure if they're done yet, but apparently they haven't found anything. So this is super late breaking. I mean, all the media is going crazy with the story right now because, again, there has not been a whole lot lately for our lovely Nancy Guthrie. So I'm going to put on this video and we're going to look at a couple articles and let's just see what we can find. I've not watched this and I've not read the entire article. So let's see what we can find.
There are breaking developments tonight in the disappearance and the search for Nancy Guthrie. An anonymous tip reportedly prompting a new search for Guthrie along the U.S.-Mexico border. The New York Post reporting the tip coming in Wednesday to a group that works to find missing people in Mexico, saying that Guthrie is buried near the border in an unmarked grave. The Pima County Sheriff's Department saying they are aware of those reports, but they also say, quote, "At this time, we have not been contacted by Mexican authorities." Nancy Guthrie, of course, the daughter of the NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie, the 84-year-old taken from her home in Tucson in the middle of the night in February, prompting a massive search. She's been missing now for over 4 months. The Sheriff's Department there says the investigation is ongoing and they are following up on all credible. There are breaking.
Okay, so we've got some folks joining. This is a very short segment. It's literally 50 seconds. I'm going to play it again. Again, if you're just joining us, there is a group, Buscando Corazones Nogales in Mexico, near the Mexican border. Again, I'm not sure if they're Nogales on the Arizona side. There is a Nogales on the Mexico side, but they received an anonymous tip yesterday, June 10th, with an area that is supposedly where Nancy Guthrie is buried. And we're going to read through a longer article that the New York Post published today. But apparently this group has been in this area before. It seems to be somewhat of a dumping ground because they had located 25 unmarked graves. And I'm not sure the time frame of those findings, but definitely super scary in general. And let's watch this again. It's a really short clip. Let's just take a peek one more time.
There are breaking developments tonight in the disappearance and the search for Nancy Guthrie. An anonymous tip reportedly prompting a new search for Guthrie along the U.S.-Mexico border. The New York Post reporting the tip coming in Wednesday to a group that works to find missing people in Mexico, saying that Guthrie is buried near the border in an unmarked grave. The Pima County Sheriff's Department saying they are aware of those reports, but they also say, quote, "At this time, we have not been contacted by Mexican authorities." Nancy Guthrie, of course, the daughter of the NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie, the 84-year-old taken from her home in Tucson in the middle of the night in February, prompting a massive search. She's been missing now for over 4 months. The Sheriff's Department there says the investigation is ongoing and they are following up on all credible information.
All right, so let me go to the article and let's take a peek. Again, I will be talking about my theory, but right now this is, again, hot off the press. Okay, so we've got the New York Post, which looks to be the first to publish this story a few hours ago, actually. And it comes from a Mexican publication, and I'll just read this article to everybody. Anonymous tip claimed Nancy Guthrie grave found in Mexico, sparking massive search. So it reads, a group that works to locate missing people in Mexico said they searched for Nancy Guthrie after they received an anonymous tip that she was buried around the border in an unmarked grave. Ramona Guadalupe Ayala Ortiz, head of Buscando Corazones Nogales, said the group received a tip on Wednesday about Guthrie, 84, who was abducted from her Tucson, Arizona home more than 70 miles north of the border city of Nogales. And here's some folks digging. The group carried out an initial investigation of the area provided by the tipster, where they previously found 25 unmarked graves, but the search for Guthrie came up empty, Ayala Ortiz told El Imparcial. Despite the roadblock, the group said they would continue future search operations in the area to find Guthrie and any other missing person. So it sounds to me like they're not done searching, which is like, please. I hope. It would be just beyond amazing if they could find her. So the area known as Mariposa, or Butterfly in English, is located northwest of Nogales, with the latest search piercing deeper than when the group found the initial graves earlier this year. Again, Buscando Corazones Nogales looks like they are a regular running search group looking for missing loved ones. And again, this area where they're searching for Nancy appears to be a freaking dumping ground, which is horrifying. They found over 25 unmarked graves this year, it looks like. When the group found the initial graves earlier this year, and I've seen 25 unmarked graves, so this year alone. So, quote, we received an anonymous call telling us that the woman's, aka Guthrie's, remains were in the Mariposa area in a grave over a stream, Ayala Ortiz said of the tip, which provided clues as to where exactly the tomb might be, which is super creepy / interesting, because it sounds like this, again, it sounds like this is a dumping ground, and only somebody with specific information is going to know about this area and lead the searchers. And it sounds like the searchers have been there before. Okay, continuing on, the search effort was also conducted with the help of the Sonora State Commission for the Search of Missing Person, with municipal and state officials providing security forces to keep the volunteers and workers safe. Guthrie, the mom of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, vanished from her home in the early hours of February 1st, with her disappearance ongoing. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I mean, this story is completely developing. Let me put in Buscando, because every time I put in Buscando Corazon Nogales, more stories are popping up. Major search underway near Nogales. I mean, wow, I don't know if this is going to lead to anything, but this is maybe the first hope. And again, they have not found her. But, you know, I was reading in a Facebook group for this Buscando Corazones Nogales before I went live, and you know, some people are questioning why an anonymous tipster would call this group and not contact the FBI because of the $1.2 million reward. And I mean, that's a very genuine question. You know, what's the deal? And I have to think that perhaps there is some sense of danger for people, anyone involved or anyone who has knowledge. And so, you know, and I've mentioned this before, to actually get the reward paid to you, you have to have such a clear line to the information that actually solves the case and gets somebody detained, arrested, sentenced. And usually it's a whole bunch of information that gets put together like pieces of a puzzle. And it's usually just not one piece, it's a whole bunch of pieces. So it's almost like winning a lottery in order to get paid out a reward. You literally would have to be on the inside like an ex-girlfriend who's, you know, irritated or pissed at their ex and turning them in. And then it goes through, once you've put your tip in, if there is an arrest and there's a sentencing, blah, 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 then there's a board that actually reviews the tips that were input and which ones were the strongest. And if there is a very fine, you know, direct lead to the tip, then they can, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down, you getting the reward. So it's not just instant. And especially if somebody's calling in anonymously, I mean, somebody who's leading these people to an area where there were 25 other unmarked graves. You know, we're going to look at some more information about Coral Smith, the other lady who is on the run right now. They have not caught her yet. She is the other lady, Coral Smith, who is on the run right now for aggravated assault and kidnapping. And, you know, people have to wonder, does she have any knowledge? Maybe she's not involved. There probably is no connection, but I mean, birds of a feather. Hey, Joe, let's see. Allegedly, they did tell everyone, ransom note. Oh, maybe you're responding to some comments in there. I'm sorry. I was just trying to see if there was a question or something. Yeah, Kay, we absolutely want this to be resolved. I don't know. At this point, I don't know how this is going to get resolved. But I got diverted tonight because, again, hot off the press, if you're just joining us, there is a group in Mexico, near Nogales, Mexico, Buscando Corazones Nogales, who received an anonymous tip yesterday with a location of Nancy Guthrie's grave, and they were out digging today. As of now, they have not found her, but the sheriff just released a statement a little bit ago saying that he is aware of this information. He's not been contacted directly by Mexican officials, but they are, you know, tuning in, and we'll see. But while this group was out there in this specific location, apparently this year, this is a regular spot. And this group, just this one search group, that apparently they do this, they're looking for loved ones. They found 25 unmarked graves this year alone in the same area. So it sounds like there could be, you know, gang or cartel activity in this area, and, you know, people missing. Maybe it's close to the border and easy to walk across. And it sounds like people in the know are aware of this area to dump some little body. So let's just pray. Oh my gosh, how wonderful. I think I would be beside myself. Okay, so part 10. I haven't really gone back to my theory in a while, and we have had some other developments. I'm going to dig into some what I think are interesting documents tonight. We're going to take a look at a few things. We're going to talk about Coral Smith, but if you're new and you haven't tuned into any of my older episodes, really they're only a month old. They're not older, but I have had a running theory for about a month and a half now, since I went out to visit Nancy Guthrie's home in Tucson, Arizona. And around that time, there were some developments that were coming out. And again, everything's speculation. I don't know what's true or what's not, but going off of what I've heard and going out to Nancy's home, I had originally thought that maybe the house was just a really good position and easily accessible to an organized theft group, and it went wrong and they took the body. But going to the house, it was so clear to me that there's no way anybody would have found that house just randomly. There's just no way. It's so hidden. All the desert flora and fauna, there's no visibility. Even if people have ring cameras, external cameras, you're not going to capture anything. It's dark. The streets are not very wide. It's windy. It's a maze. You have to have GPS. It made perfect sense to me that Porch Guy had reconned it at least the one time. I would not be surprised if he reconned it 2 or 3 times, just getting familiar with the area and being able to move around the home in the middle of the night, knowing where the doors are and the layout and, all those things. So I went away from that visit, and it was just like so many things just popped in my head. And the Hoda interview, we're going to look at that again tonight, the very first part 1. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to analyze the things that Savannah says and things Savannah doesn't say. But if we look at, again, the timeline, and I'm going to actually share the timeline that my viewer had given me, JV. So if we look at the timeline, we all know that Nancy was supposed to be at the church group. All we know is that she was supposedly at dinner that night before, that Saturday night. She was supposedly dropped off. We don't know. Okay, we don't know. We're going to go off of whatever information we actually have. Let me get this shared. Okay. So, and this is a timeline that was given to me by a user, JV. And if you're watching, thank you, JV, for your wonderful theory that you put together for us as well. But January 31st, Nancy takes an Uber at 5:32 p.m. to Annie and Tommaso's. Tommaso drops her back off at 9:48. A lot of people asked why they put their mother in an Uber. And I can only surmise that maybe they, were both coming home from work. Annie and Tommaso were coming home from work, wanting to get dinner on. It was probably just easier to have her Uber over. A lot of people did comment that it makes sense, even though Nancy could drive, that she probably would not want to drive back in the dark. And I agree, I'm a horrible night driver. So that makes perfect sense. But Tommaso, to our knowledge, what we've been told is he drops her off. Between 1:30 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., Nancy is abducted. That next morning, Annie and Tommaso are phoned about the church service, not being attended. And they are at the house at 11:56. They're walking around. The back doors are propped open. Where's mom? 12:03 p.m. 911 is placed. And within about 7 or 8 minutes, the Pima County Sheriff's Office deputies, responders are there. Okay. And so this is where the first sign to me that the family is aware that there's something bubbling on in the background of Savannah Guthrie. I don't know why Savannah Guthrie. I've asked myself that, just like I asked myself, why January 31st? I think it's the Olympics tie-in at this point, but it took me a minute to get there. It totally ties in with the Olympics. It was like, why that Saturday night? Why was it that Saturday night? Well, Savannah was going to be leaving for Italy for the Olympics to be hosting the opening ceremony. And it's just another, kick them when they're down type of a thing, salt in the wound, and more punishment and hurt for Savannah. Now, why would somebody want to hurt Savannah Guthrie? Little old Savannah Guthrie, sweet as pie, Taylor Swift songs, sweeter than a peach, softer than a kitten, Savannah Guthrie. Well, there are people out there that have problems. Okay. Let me just put it to you that way. There are people out there that have mental health challenges. Okay. They don't handle things the way a rational person does. No judgment. It happens. But there are some people who just cannot get a grasp on either taking medication or working through their feelings or getting help, any of that. And there are stalkers. There are celebrity stalkers. There are journalism stalkers. There are so many stories of people getting fixated on TV news anchors of the local news. Jody Huisentruit in Iowa, she was kidnapped, and they think now, 35 years later, they may have a deathbed confession from somebody. There's a report of that. But that family had zero evidence of where Jody Huisentruit went, and there was no DNA evidence at that time, and they didn't really have anything. And so, believe it or not, people get fixated on others for the strangest reasons. And we don't know why, Savannah. We don't know. But I believe somebody has a fixation on Savannah. I was leaning toward maybe a professional slight or somebody wanting something from her, in the professional realm, or a help up or a leg up. But I don't think so, because I think that if anybody had asked Savannah for something, along the lines of a work referral or intro, she would know a name. Okay. I don't think she knows a name. It could be somebody who sent her dirty notes. It could be somebody sending her emails where he thinks she's communicating to him through the TV, with messages, or she's wearing her yellow dress today. That means she's thinking about him, just weird stuff. Okay. Things that normal, people just don't understand, but it really does happen. People do think, and they hear voices and all of the above. So if somebody's watching Savannah and has some sort of interest in her and thinks that she is in a relationship with them, he could be communicating with her digitally. Sometimes there's paranoia that comes along with people who are having psychosis breaks. And, it could be that this person really covered their digital tracks. Okay. And chances are there would have been messaging that was escalating, either in threats or demands, etc. So my theory is that Savannah had somebody bubbling around in her orbit that she couldn't get rid of, or her assistants couldn't drop, and it was annoying. And whatever it was that they wanted, she didn't do, she didn't fulfill, she didn't send a message, whatever. Okay. And then the retaliation happens. There is an indication that there was a Google search done in late 2025 of Nancy Guthrie's home, and then shortly before the kidnapping, Savannah Guthrie's income. I tried to recreate that Google trend with those keywords, and I was not successful. I couldn't get any searches to come up in Arizona until February 1st. And then you've got a ton of searches because everyone was looking. But I couldn't recreate the Google searches that were done in late 2025 for Nancy Guthrie's address and Savannah Guthrie's salary. And those are key elements in somebody doing online research and trying to get information as part of a plan. And this person had a lot of patience. I think this was a long tail plan for revenge, a targeted abduction in retaliation against Savannah. And really, her Achilles heel, other than her husband and her children especially, really is her mother. And the fact that she had been in a segment for the Today Show with her sister and her mother in Tucson. And it looked like those searches were somewhat local, at least in the state of Arizona, is what we've seen in the images online. So be what it is, okay? Be that as it may. If that is true, and if we can take the information that we've seen as truthful, then it's very obvious that somebody had been watching her from afar and had been planning something for months, and we're very patient, and the timing's very specific. Okay. Again, Savannah was due to be in Italy for the Winter Olympics. So February 1st, taking Nancy is completely stopping Savannah personally and professionally. So if somebody really, really, really wanted to hurt Savannah, they did a brilliant job. I mean, this woman is completely destroyed. So going back to the timeline, who here, raise your hand if you have an elderly mother and you go to her home and the back door is open, her purse is there, and you don't think, well, maybe she ran out with a friend to go to Circle K or went to go get some coffee or ran to the store. Who here, raise your hand if your first thought is, no, my mother's been kidnapped for ransom. Okay, that is not common. All of the professionals say that the risk of Nancy Guthrie or an 84-year-old woman being targeted for kidnap, for ransom, is nil. I mean, just it does not happen. It does not happen. And for Annie to tell law enforcement that day that no, she did not walk off. She can't walk. She has she has chronic pain, but she's, sharp as a whip. She did not walk off. I think she's been kidnapped. Law enforcement did not listen to Annie, and they went about their business that first day, February 1st, as a walk-off, an elderly walk-off. And they lost all of those immediate hours. They lost because they did not listen to Annie. Annie's going through and panicking and freaking out, trying to explain to them, no, she's been kidnapped. She gets a hold of her siblings, which I do question because my first call after calling 911 would have been to my sister. So she calls her siblings. I don't know what order she called her siblings, but Cam, the brother, his first response was, Mom's been kidnapped for ransom. That's 2 siblings. And then when Savannah gets together and is in town later that night, she goes to her siblings. Could this be because of me? Wow, 3 for 3. Okay, how in the hell are 3 siblings all going to look at each other and go, Mom's been kidnapped? You don't say those things unless you know there has been a threat. And my opinion is they knew there was a threat. Now, a lot of people said, well, if they knew there was a threat, why wasn't there security? Why weren't there working subscription with the cameras? Great question. But guess what? Again, if you live in New York and you've got some weirdo writing you letters or emails or whatever, are you going to think I need to have security tighter around me when I'm going in and out of, M30 Rock or wherever it is they film? Okay. Am I going to need to be careful around my kids, my husband? We need to have security, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You are not going to think, oh, this wacko is going to go to Arizona and take my mother. So I can't really say that that would be an obvious angle that they need to protect. So I don't know that that's going to be, that wasn't as obvious as my mother's been kidnapped for ransom, if that makes sense. And yes, this is very true. Savannah has a full security team. Again, you know why Savannah has a full security team? Because she's a celebrity and they have people who get crazy even next to the building, jumping at them, wanting to touch them and hug them. It happens. Nancy didn't have anything. Well, again, we can't Monday morning quarterback. Again, the chance of this happening is it's just statistically not ever going to happen. And not only statistically should this not have happened, but the way the case has gone and the leads that supposedly are going nowhere is just crazy. And nothing has made sense. It's like the great caper of the 21st century. Seriously. Okay, so everybody's together. The first day, Pima County Sheriff's Office, it's a walk-off. Guthrie family, it's a walk-off. Well, Savannah gets into Annie's house in Tucson. She had been on the phone at some point with Senator Mark Kelly, who is a friend of hers. She's like, Mark, and I'm just speculating here. Mark, you need to help me. The sheriff, they're not listening. I have this whole background going on. I need your help. I need the sheriff to listen to us. I need your help. Mark Kelly, Senator Mark Kelly gets, oh, dreamy, Chris Nanos. Bleh. So anyway, I can believe it when in her interview, she talks about being on with the sheriff in the middle of the night, which is like, wow, it could only have been Senator Mark Kelly that got Chris Nanos up from his beauty rest. But supposedly she's on the phone with Sheriff Nanos in the middle of the night. What is she doing on the phone with Chris Nanos in the middle of the night? She's telling Chris Nanos, hey, I got problems and you need to listen to me. Okay. This is most likely an abduction. And guess what happens next? The next morning, bright and early, February 2nd, homicides is at the scene. They are now treating it as search and rescue. It's a whole different game. And I do not believe that the search changed direction until after Savannah was able to have Chris Nanos listen to her and explain what is really going on and be taken seriously. So, you know, and also the inside scene of the home, there was really, everything was fine. There didn't look like there was a scene. There was no broken lamps, no tables or chairs overturned. Supposedly the blood is only out on the front porch. And yeah, there's blood, but I mean, honestly, it doesn't look like a huge amount of blood. I mean, people say it's a lot of blood, and it could be, but I mean, it could be anyone. If she's a bleeder, it could be her just, you know, she cut herself or something. It could be old blood, you know, it may not be new blood. So either way, they did finally start taking them seriously, and they got homicide and everybody going, but they'd already lost a lot of time. So one thing that I wanted to look at tonight is we've been talking a little bit about the texts. So, you know, I've been leaving the family. And again, this is a theory. I am so happy to change my mind. This is the only theory at this point that I think is in the lead of many theories. I'm not sold on this. I'm not married to this. If more information comes out, like if they find her body in Nogales, I mean, and it looks like it could be drug cartel related, I don't have to be right. I just want Nancy found. That's my whole point, is I'm just trying to put together some logical thoughts that might make sense with what we've seen, because we're all grasping at straws. So I just want to be perfectly clear. I don't have to be right. I don't want to be right. I just want Nancy found. So if the entire scenario changes in a day, love it. As long as Nancy's found, I don't care. Okay. But for right now, because I am a, control person, I have to, in my mind, I have to have some semblance of an understanding of what has happened, because there's been no semblance of an understanding with any of this. And it's just so frustrating. And professionals don't want to speculate, but I'm like, please speculate, tell me what is most likely has happened. And, we've seen a few theories, and that's fine. We're all just in this together. We're all in this together, but I want people to speculate. Give me your best shot. Let's put this together with some idea. So talking about the family, they've been cleared. Okay. But we're all kind of leaving them on the table until we have a mugshot and a perp walk. We kind of do at this point. I have resigned myself to kind of leaving them on the table. We have to. Okay. I don't want to hurt them any more than they already are, but it's just common sense. Okay. And there's been some coincidences. Now, Derek Callello, he is the person from Hawthorne, California, that texted Annie and Tommaso shortly after Nancy was gone with something along the lines, and I'm paraphrasing, do you have the Bitcoin? They're waiting for it. And my biggest problem with that is why supposedly they know him via the band scene. Why would you text somebody that you are even an acquaintance with that after their mother has been kidnapped? I mean, either he's seriously missing a chip, or he was really trying to get money from these people, or is he speaking for someone, a third party, that there is money that's supposed to be changing the hands? And is Nancy connected with some sort of, money grab? Okay, that would be obvious. That pattern actually tracks because that's usually what we see. So I actually have his court docs, Joe. So I pulled his charging packet, and I thought, well, let's just go through it and see, because we've been asking a lot of questions about this guy, and it's only 3 pages, so it doesn't really give a lot of details, and I think they're purposefully leaving out a lot of information because they don't want anything shared. June 23rd is his hearing. Okay, awesome. It's coming up. All right, so let's just look through this docket really quick. So we've got United States of America v. Derek Callello. Complainant's statement of facts constituting the offense or violation. Count 1, on or about February 4th, defendant Derek Callello, with the intent to transmit a demand for ransom, did transmit in interstate or foreign commerce any communication containing any demand or request for a ransom or reward for the release of any kidnapped person. Count 2, on or about February 4th, defendant Derek Callello, in interstate or foreign communications, made a telephone call and utilized a telecommunications device, whether or not conversation or communications ensues, without disclosing his identity and with intent to abuse, threaten, or harass any specific person. All right, so this definitely is interstate, and that's where the feds can get involved. So basis of complainant's charge against the accused. Continue on pages 2 through 3. Detention requested. I'll just read. Being duly sworn, I declare that the foregoing is true and correct to the best of my knowledge, and there is a magistrate judge, Maria S. Aguilera, February 5th. So here's the complaint continued. The disappearance of NG, Nancy Guthrie, was last seen inside her residence in the Catalina Foothills community outside Tucson, Arizona on January 31st, 2026. NG is an 84-year-old woman with mobility issues that likely preclude her from walking long distances unassisted. On the morning of February 1st, 2026, a friend of NG's contacted the victim's family and notified them that NG had not attended church that morning. We don't know who that friend is, but it's a church friend. At approximately noon on February 1st, 2026, NG's family entered her residence and determined that she was missing and reported her disappearance to law enforcement. Law enforcement arrived shortly thereafter and determined that NG had left basic essentials inside her home, including her wallet, car, cell phone, hearing aid, and medication. NG's blood was found on the outside of her residence near the porch. On February 2nd, 2026, KOLD, a CBS affiliate in Tucson, Arizona, received a ransom demand via their online tip portal. That is the contact us that is so hard. Apparently, it's so hard to track down, that just seems weird to me as well. I mean, I don't know how, but okay, there should be some metadata or something. The demand listed a Bitcoin wallet address to receive the ransom payment. On February 4th, 2026, NG's family published a video asking NG's kidnappers to contact them about their mother. Counts 1 and 2. On or about February 4th, 2026, shortly after the video was published, AC and TC, the daughter and son-in-law of NG, both separately received a text message from the following phone number stating, quote, "Did you get the Bitcoin? We're sick," meaning misspelled, "waiting on our end for the transaction." That implies previous conversation. That does not look good. And again, he is an acquaintance through the band scene. AC and TC received these texts while in Arizona. Law enforcement was able to determine through open source methods that the 0552 number was associated with a voice over internet protocol, VoIP, text and call application that allows users to obtain another phone number for their mobile device separate from the number assigned to them by their wireless carrier. So he was trying to hide behind a VoIP number. Law enforcement submitted an emergency disclosure request for the 0552 number based on the records provided for the 0552 number was registered to the following email address. So basically he used a Google call number that anybody can get. If you have a Gmail, you can use Google Voice and they give you a number for free that you can make phone calls from your computer. What an idiot. The records also indicated that the 0552 number had been accessed from the following IP address, which is from his computer at approximately 6:02 p.m. on February 4th, 2026, which is like after their first pleading message. Law enforcement submitted an emergency disclosure request to the internet provider for the 103 IP address and determined that the 103 IP address was associated with Callello's residence in California. Dom da dom dom. Oh my gosh. Dom da dom dom dom. After Miranda warnings, Callello admitted to sending the two text messages. He admitted to using the VoIP account from which two actual text messages came from. Callello stated that he pulled family information from a cyber website and that he had been following along and watching TV. When he said that he sent text messages, he was trying to see if the family would respond. Data received shows that approximately 3 minutes after the text messages, Callello called a family member of the NG, which lasted 9 seconds. The two text messages have not been linked to the February 2nd, 2026. So he's not linked to any of those ransom notes that went to TMZ. So what does this tell us? What does this tell us? He got both of their phone numbers. You could go through like Truth Finder. There's websites you could pay $25 to, and you can find people's cell phone numbers. You can find people's addresses. But again, if you know somebody from the band scene, an acquaintance, and the most horrible thing has happened, their dear mother has been taken in a horrible manner. They're traumatized. The family is reeling. You're going to send two of them a text message, "Where's the Bitcoin? We're waiting for it." And then call them and have the phone call answered for 9 seconds. That does not look good. And so now I have to wonder, and they've released this guy. Here's release orders. So let's look at the release orders. February 12th, he got put in the clink. Pursuant to section blah, 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 the court may impose the following least restrictive conditions only as necessary to reasonably assure the appearance of the person as required and the safety of any other person and the community. Defendant is ordered released from personal recognizance. Next appearance as directed by the court. Defendant is subject to the following conditions. Defendant promises to appear at all proceedings as required and to surrender for service of any sentence imposed. The defendant shall not commit any federal, state, tribal, or local crime. The defendant shall cooperate in the collection of DNA sample. Defendant shall immediately advise his or her attorney and pretrial services in writing prior to any change in residence, mailing, or telephone. The defendant shall report as directed to the pretrial services division. The defendant shall abide by the following restrictions on his or her personal association's place of abode or travel. The defendant shall not travel out of the state of Arizona. So he's in Arizona, even though he lives in California. Let's see what else. The defendant may travel directly to the prosecuting district of Arizona and through all states and counties in between the District of Arizona and California for court purposes. So they did let him go home. Unless prior court or pretrial services permission is granted to travel elsewhere, the defendant shall avoid all direct or indirect contact with persons who are considered alleged victims and potential witnesses. The defendant shall surrender all travel documents to pretrial services by February 9th, which is a passport. The defendant shall not possess or attempt to acquire a firearm. The defendant shall maintain or actively seek employment and provide proof of such. Okay, so they want him to work or look for a job. The defendant shall not consume alcohol. The defendant shall submit to a breathalyzer or urinalysis testing. Defendant shall not use or possess narcotic drug. Defendant shall resolve all pending lower court matters and provide proof of such. So if he has any tickets, he's got to pay those. The defendant shall participate in the remote internet and computer monitoring program. So he's got a little thing on his foot. Pretrial services is authorized to monitor the defendant's computer device. Pretrial services is authorized to remotely access the monitoring software installed on the defendant's device at any time, with or without suspicion. Should the defendant fail to comply with the remote internet and computer monitoring program, the court may impose additional restrictions that may include up to revocation of the defendant's pretrial release. The defendant shall pay for all or part of the cost of the remote internet and computer monitoring program, probably pay for drug tests, urinalysis. Defendant shall not intentionally attempt or direct a third party to remove, bypass, or impair the monitoring software. Blah, blah, blah. It's about the thing and the thing on the thing and the computer on the thing. The defendant may not use or have access to any VoIP applications. That's going to be hard. The defendant may only use and possess one smartphone, which must be approved by his supervising officer. Violating any of these will put you back in the thing and the clink. It's a crime punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine to obstruct criminal investigation. If after the release you do not pass go, you get in big trouble. You're going to get a nanny boo-boo. You're going to get a herkle jerkle. We're going to give you a tidy whitey wedgie. Okay, so all of this, February 12th. Okay, this does not give his date, but basically he's being watched, which makes perfect sense. So, yes, and 857 is not down. Channel 0 is fine. I'm not sure what you guys are probably talking to. Joe, I could be wrong, but I think he has been caught doing something similar to this. J-Dub, leaning strongly, DC is an opportunist, nothing more. 23rd will be interesting. Agreed. But here's the thing. If DC has any information, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate and I'm going to kind of go there a little bit. The first person in gets the deal. If a deal is going to be got, the first person in gets the deal. What if he does have information? What if he is somewhat of a middleman and there was some, nasty business going on and he has information? Part of his deal could be that they've let him out on house arrest while they're doing their investigation. So again, these things are odd. Just really odd. Just doesn't happen. Just weird. And he could be an opportunist. He could be a slime bag. Totally. And that may be what it is. But that's pretty bad. If he literally is an opportunist, if you are in a band scene and you're reaching out to two people that you may have a slight knowledge of. I mean, that's sick. But I mean, we can't be surprised, right? If we can think it, it will happen. Okay, so going back to, kind of jumping around with the theory again, I don't know. Maybe it is the family. It's hard to say. Chris McDonough the other night was talking about the map that we've looked at a few times. Map that Annie gave neighbor. Okay, this is the map that Annie supposedly gave the neighbor in a Facebook group of, let's just talk about this, because Chris McDonough had a pretty good point. Okay, so this is supposedly a map that Annie Guthrie posted in a neighborhood face group thing saying, if you've got cameras along this route, can you please pull your cameras? That was the premise of this. Okay, where did Annie get this route? Because when I went into this Facebook group, people who live in the area all said, this is just not the route you're going to take leaving the neighborhood. And I agree. I mean, if we follow, and I've said this so many times, so I'm sorry if this is redundant for folks that are regulars, but again, you're coming from left to right. It's the way we're going. We're going from left to right, from east to west. And they come to this street and they make a right and they go up, and then they make a left, and then they come down, they go wiggle, 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 and then they come to another road where they can only go left or right, and they're going to go right, and they're going to go left. And how do we know they didn't go left at the first turn and then right again? And we don't know. So Chris McDonough raised a really good question. And I thought this was brilliant, considering I've dived into what AI, and we're going to talk a little bit about AI tonight as well, because I'm just really digging it. But with AI, and if these people are smarter than the average bear, and we know that modern cars do have, that black box inside and has a GPS, what if Annie knew that there are going to be what they call telematics pulled from their car, which their car had been impounded, and the cops are going to know where that car went. So if Annie knows they're going to find out where her car went, what if Annie is smart enough to say, hey guys, this is a possible path that the kidnapper took, to kind of explain away why this route was taken? I don't know. Chris McDonough mentioned that, and it's like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say, I don't know. Maybe Annie is smarter than I originally thought. Maybe she was just kind of, because she's an artsy person, I thought, well, maybe she's just, a mushy teddy bear or something. I'm not saying that she's not intelligent, but anyway, I thought that was a really interesting comment, that maybe she's producing this map because it's possible cops might see that her car went this way. Anyway, I don't know. Now that I'm saying it, it maybe doesn't make sense. And we're just grasping. I'm grasping for sure. So I went to, kind of switching gears now, we've had those 3 YouTubers that were arrested in front of Nancy's house. And yes, there's no room. I don't know what easement they said they were sitting in. I haven't watched any of the videos. I think I've seen some of the 857 Tucson from when they were doing a lot of the coverage, and it was during the early days, boots on the ground. I think I would tune in because he had the camera on his dashboard and he'd be driving around, and it's like, what's going on? So he posted, apparently he has filed with the ACLU. Let me see if I can open this. See if I can make this bigger. He's saying that his First Amendment rights have been, I don't know. I can't think of the right word, but they're going against his First Amendment rights. And I'll see if I can I can't make it any bigger, but apparently this is his side of the story. And again, this is one of the people, I don't know who had the P tent. Kind of curious now who had the P tent, who had the great idea to set up one of those camping pop-up tents where you could urinate. Right on, guys. So let's see what he has to say. Violated. Okay, concerning Sheriff Chris Nanos, June 11th, 2026, to the American Civil Liberties Union of Arizona. My name is Alexander Zabel Jr. I am an independent journalist, search organizer, YouTuber, and citizen reporter based in Pima County, Arizona. I like that. Am I an independent journalist? I don't know if I am. I don't know. That'd be kind of citizen reporter. I don't know. I am writing to request that the ACLU review what I believe to be violations of my constitutional rights and the rights of others who have been documenting the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. And might I add, before I even continue, I've seen so many other people who have chimed in on different YouTube comments and Facebook posts that say, I have lost a loved one. My daughter went missing. I would have loved to have had YouTubers sitting in my front yard posting about my loved one. And these neighbors are being dicks and chasing these guys out, and they're just trying to keep the media. So there is a point to be given. Okay. Law enforcement. All right, going back, I skipped a paragraph. On or about June 2026, I was arrested at my home and charged with 2 misdemeanor offenses, apparently in front of his children, which must have been terrifying. Public nuisance and blocking a public roadway. I strongly dispute the allegations against me. Law enforcement claimed that I threw urine, which I categorically deny. They also alleged that I was blocking a public roadway. At the time of the alleged offense, I was utilizing what I understood to be a public right-of-way / easement area while documenting matters of public concern and exercising my First Amendment rights, including freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and peaceful assembly. Another individual, Tony Bradshaw, was also arrested. The disappearance of Nancy Guthrie remains an active and unresolved missing person case. As of June 11, 2026, Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 131 days. Her case continues to be listed by law enforcement and remains a matter of significant public interest. My reporting, documentation, search coordination, and public awareness efforts have focused solely on keeping attention on her disappearance and encouraging continued awareness in hopes that answers may one day be found. At no time did I trespass onto Nancy Guthrie's property. At no time did I attempt to interfere with any law enforcement investigation. My activities consisted of documenting, filming, reporting, organizing search-related efforts, coordinating volunteers and interested citizens, and discussing a matter of public concern from locations that I believe to be lawfully accessible to the public. Yeah, but if there were still signs up, for a significant period of time, members of our group utilized the public easement right-of-way area located across the street from Nancy Guthrie's residence. We chose that location specifically because it allowed us to remain off private property while continuing to document developments related to the case. However, the environment became increasingly hostile. One neighboring resident openly acknowledged on video that large rocks, dead cactus material, and dog feces had been intentionally placed in or near the area we had previously occupied. According to statements made on video, these actions were taken to discourage our presence. I believe this is relevant because it demonstrates the level of hostility directed toward independent journalists, search organizers, and content creators who were attempting to lawfully exercise their constitutional rights while remaining on what we understood to be public property. I possess video evidence regarding these incidents, and I'm willing to provide it for review. There has been considerable public debate regarding parking and access restrictions in the neighborhood. Yes, it's not a debate. There are signs you can't park. My understanding of the applicable ordinance is that parking is prohibited while drop-offs and pickups remain permissible. That I agree with. It doesn't say you can't drop off, you can't pick up. It says you can't park. You can park outside of the perimeter and walk in, but you shouldn't be stopped from being dropped off. That I completely agree with. The Catalina Foothills neighborhood is not exempt from constitutional protections, nor should any neighborhood receive special treatment that limits the lawful exercise of rights otherwise afforded to residents and visitors throughout Pima County. One issue that has arisen involves restroom access. There is no restroom access. Due to the hostility directed toward many content creators, journalists, volunteers, and members of the public in the area using nearby private residences is generally not an option. I don't blame them. Who's going to let a stranger in your house? No. To avoid any possibility of public exposure or indecency, I utilized a small portable privacy tent designed solely to provide privacy while changing clothes or addressing personal restroom needs. The purpose of the privacy tent was specifically to avoid exposing myself or violating any laws. It was not being used as a campsite, residence, or place of overnight occupancy. I'm sorry, I have a really weird sense of humor. It's just I can't stand it, a pee tent. Additionally, local homeowners conducting construction projects informed us that we could use portable construction restrooms located on their property. That's nice. Despite these accommodations, members of our group, including Troy Bradshaw, were subjected to repeated complaints, confrontations, and what appeared to be targeted scrutiny. Troy was even confronted after using a portable restroom that he had been given permission to use. I think if you're using one of those porta potties, you need to just be left alone. That I agree. I can kind of see both sides on that. I'm also concerned that selective enforcement may have occurred. In my view, individuals documenting and organizing searches related to the Nancy Guthrie case have been subjected to heightened scrutiny compared to others in the area. During periods when national and local media outlets were present, large media operations often utilize generators maintained for extended periods and generate significantly more activity than independent journalists, search organizers, and content creators. Nevertheless, independent voices appear to be the primary focus of enforcement efforts. I do see that. I think that legacy media definitely has more of an authoritarian than just regular people who are YouTubers. If regular media is more legitimate, I guess, but maybe that's changing. As a Hispanic male, I am concerned that my treatment may have been influenced by factors unrelated to my actual conduct. I certainly hope not. Likewise, Troy Bradshaw, a Black male, was also arrested. While I cannot know the motivations behind the decisions that were made, I believe the circumstances surrounding our arrest warrant careful review to determine whether equal treatment under the law was afforded to all parties involved. I certainly personally hope that the neighbors were not targeting them because of that, because it could be a bit of a snooty area. I mean, I had a neighbor who I would describe as a Karen, like I said, taking pictures of my license plate. If I was a Hispanic male or a Black man or woman, would I have gotten treatment? I hope that's not the case, but I am further concerned about how I have been portrayed publicly. Certain media reports have characterized me as a homeless individual camping in the neighborhood. This characterization is false and misleading. The portable privacy tent I possessed was not being used as a residence or campsite. It was used solely for privacy purposes and to avoid potential allegations relating to public exposure. These portrayals have damaged my reputation. I did not realize it was this long. We're getting there, though, folks. Hang on. We're in it now. We got to read the whole thing. Finally, I have concerns regarding procedural issues related to my citation and release. Upon being bailed out, I noted that my paperwork did not clearly identify a court date, leaving me uncertain about my obligations and next steps. I believe every person charged with an offense should receive clear notice of all required court appearance and legal obligations. I respectfully request that the ACLU of Arizona review the circumstances surrounding these arrests and determine whether violations of the First Amendment, 14th Amendment, selective enforcement protections, due process rights, and or other constitutional protections may have occurred. This case is bigger than me. It concerns the rights of independent journalists, search organizers, citizen reporters, content creators, volunteers, and members of the public to peacefully document matters of public concern without fear of retaliation, selective enforcement, intimidation, or arrest. For 131 days, countless individuals have devoted their time, energy, and resources to keeping attention focused on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Your goal has never been confrontation. I'm willing to provide photographs, witness statements, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that was a lot. I did not realize that it was that long. However, I have to absolutely sympathize because honestly, it's a bit of a snooty neighborhood. I don't know what the makeup is, but I mean, I certainly hope that is not the case, that they were being targeted for that reason. I can see maybe a P tent being taken the wrong way, although I have to give him props for thinking ahead and not, because I mean, oh my gosh, if you pee outside, you absolutely are going to go for public indecency. Let me look at my phone. Talk amongst yourselves, because I took pictures. I want to look at my pictures of, I took a picture of the little signs that were in the road. Give me just a moment, please. Talk amongst yourselves, because I want to read exactly what the signs said, because yes, I don't recall that they said anything about drop-offs, but I don't know if it included like no one being there. All right, hold on. Please hold. I promise I'm not going to take much time. As soon as if I can find it. Okay, it's probably in a video. It doesn't look like I have any pictures. I'm going to look one last time, and then I'm going to move on. Okay, I am now moving on. I'm going to find it from my video, and I'm going to see if I can find a still shot of the little placard signs and see exactly what they say. And I'm sure that he's seen them and he knows them, blah, blah, blah. But I do want to question, because supposedly the report is that they were asked to leave by law enforcement. But I also read a post from, I believe this Alexander Zabel, that shortly before the situation happened, that some sheriffs or law enforcement people had gone by and they said, "Hey, are we good?" And the cop said, "Yeah, you're good. You guys are fine." And then later that day they're arrested. So, you know, that's not surprising. One hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. My first knee-jerk reaction yesterday reading this is that these guys must have been annoying. And, you know, I'm not sure that they're 100% innocent, but I do have a problem with potentially some of what happened to them. Let's see. What does Joe say? I don't agree with some of the things they have done, but the news and the sheriff are wrong. Okay. Watch Troy getting cited and then arrested. It's a joke. 4 deputies for almost an hour both times. Sounds like overkill. And you know what? These neighbors, I mean, I did have a Karen. I totally had a Karen. She was there with her husband. Her husband was probably just going, "Come on, Karen, let's go." She stood there taking pictures of my license plate, could clearly see I was the only person there next to the memorial. And I walked down, I said, "Hey, that's my car. I'm leaving now." And she says, "Oh, I wasn't sure whose car this was." Like, I'm literally the only one there. Okay. And she said, yeah, where's Nancy? So anyway, I'll change the subject. All right. So in other news, I saw this short. We're going to watch this. Let me add it back in. I'm going to add this back in. That reminds me that you guys please subscribe if you can and you haven't. Please subscribe. It's free. And I'm weird. All right, so let's watch this. Where is Annie Guthrie's card? Nancy Guthrie memorial card missing. Apparently, they've taken the memorial down. So let's watch.
Disappearance had now stretched on to 14 days, and there's this emotional weight that the community is carrying, but the people are not giving up hope, and they're showing support. So right behind me is a memorial outside of Nancy's home in the Catalina foothills that continues to grow. There are yellow flowers to symbolize the hope that everyone is holding on to. And just a couple of minutes ago, a couple dropped some flowers off, and that's something that we've been seeing all day out here. And they are just trying to stay strong for themselves and also for the family. And the latest,
I can't imagine how bad that would be.
This looks like an old video.
Imagine this for the daughters and the sons, how they're feeling right now.
Let's just
your
see where
mother
this
took
goes.
away from you.
This is Chris McDonough. This is old, but let's see where he's going with it. Yeah, this looks like the people were still setting this up. The flower, even May 4th when I was there, the flowers were so beautiful.
Hey everybody, Chris here from the interview room. And, I want to just thank everybody, first of all, for being subscribers on our channel. We're almost at 300,000, and for that we are very, very grateful. So I may want to ask you, if you haven't subscribed yet, if you could hit that subscription button below, that would really help us going forward. That said, hey, I want to just pick your brains about your feelings on the removal of the memorial in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. I thought about that, and the more I thought about it, the more interested I became in why that would be the case. Now, this may be an absolute nothing burger, but, I tried to give the analogy in my brain, probably like you, thinking, if my son or daughter or family member was away at Afghanistan, you would tie a yellow ribbon around your trees, and you would expect at their return it would be a joyous opportunity and event, that would take place. And so, the public reached out, in theory, to the Guthrie family and laid, their items of grief and support for the family. And most recently, as you guys have probably all heard, we've all heard, that memorial's been taken down, or at least removed significantly. And I thought to myself, why would that be the case? And for some reason, I still can't think through the HOA or, the family or somebody coming out there, damaging it, number one, maybe vandalizing it. And number two, why that would even be an option to remove it. I mean, this is an 84-year-old woman sound asleep in her bed. Everybody knows that. The perpetrator has not been captured yet. The family made a big to-do on national media to come down the driveway in unison one with another and lay flowers, put a card down there, expressing their grief about mom being missing. And today now, that card's gone.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder who did that. Right, Joe. It'd be nice if they were searching that hard for Nancy.
Where did that card go?
Yeah, who took that?
Who got that
Yeah.
card?
Good question.
Is it the family?
Is it the neighbors?
Is it a total stranger that came up and stole the card
The Karen neighbor.
away from the family? And I thought to myself, who or why would somebody do that? Or is it just something that's just disconnected and we're not seeing it yet? I don't understand it. And I wanted to just kind of talk about that this morning to ask you what you were thinking about this. And if it was equivalent to the analogy of leaving the yellow ribbon around your tree in your front lawn and your family member is still away, would you have done that?
I wonder if the neighbors didn't ask the family if they could take the memorial down, because maybe they think that their interest is to come film the actual memorial. And I don't think that's the case. I wasn't there to see the memorial, although it was beautiful, and I can still smell the flowers were gorgeous. It was so beautiful. I think people are just there to try to keep the attention. I mean, I understand these YouTubers are there and they're probably making a lot of money. Okay, let's not be fooled. These guys that are on there for hours with this huge following, they're making a lot of money. Do they genuinely care about Nancy? I truly hope they are. I hope they do. I'm a small channel, but I started this because of Nancy, and I've stayed on it for Nancy, and I'm super small. You know, I work a full-time job. I'm not quitting my life just to go do this, but the memorial the flowers are not why people would go to her house. And there's nothing, that's what's weird. You know, somebody asked if there are cameras catching anything. You can't see. I mean, it's really hard to explain. Look behind Chris McDonough. You see it's kind of a desert setting behind him. Take all those trees and fill in that entire area with trees and cactus and shrubbery. You cannot see anything. If you're behind trees and shrubbery, you can't see the house. The only time you can see up the house is if you're standing like at the driveway. And it looked like it was set further back from the street, but it really isn't. It was about maybe 20 feet from the edge of the street to where her circular drive began. And there's shrubbery in that. It's a circle drive. And there's shrubbery in between, you know, desert plants. And the only time you could see the house is if you're literally standing at either side of the driveway. You can see the side of the house and you can, you know, see kind of the front door. But other than that, you cannot see around. There's nothing to see. So, you know, if Porch Guy had a car and it was parked even a house down, you wouldn't have seen it except for maybe the lights. But, you know, maybe they pulled in with no lights, no running lights going, which is very, very possible. So anyway, I'm not sure. He's just kind of talking about the memorial being gone. I'm not sure that there's much more to add. And I've been going for an hour 18. I'm going to probably save some of the conversation about Coral Smith to tomorrow night. I'm going to do an analysis again of part 1 of the Hoda interview. So things I thought I was going to get through tonight, I didn't. But I really appreciate the conversation tonight, and I really appreciate everybody, you know, interacting and all of your feedback. I read all of your comments, and I really do. I look at everything, and I'm weighing everything. I'm open to everything. You know, while I do believe this is a fixated fan for Savannah, the family knew about it. The family may not know exactly who took Nancy, but the family was aware that there was an escalating threat with Savannah. And they all immediately knew when Nancy went missing that this was a targeted abduction, kidnap for ransom situation. There's no doubt in my mind that they all knew exactly what happened. And at this point, Savannah has taken the onus on herself, and the emotional, she's got a different challenge than even Annie and Cam do, because her situation is that of guilt, of being the cause. I mean, it's going to be traumatic and horrible for Annie and Cam, but it's harder being the person who may have caused this to happen. So I will probably go into this tomorrow night, Friday night. I'll sandbag some of my goodies. I do appreciate everybody. Please remember, again, one last time, I know it's a pain to ask, but please do subscribe and hit that notification bell. I really appreciate everybody coming back. I'm getting to see everybody's names. So I hope you have a wonderful night. And until the next time, I will catch you on the flip side. Toodaloo.